pleasure to have you with us, Naveen. And you're a very well-known face in the business world, somebody who's been responsible undisputedly for converting, your company into a blue chip Asian giant. And I'm sure that everybody is really, really delighted to have you here today. You've spoken a lot about your business, but now I'm going to divert the conversation a little bit and I'm going to get to know you and your story and life story, because I'm sure that our viewers are really interested to know that part as well. So you did your schooling from Delhi and you also studied in Texas. So if you can go back in time and recall that, what was your college life like? We'd be really interested to know what kind of a student were you?
Well, I was always an average student. I got into Delhi University, Hansraj College on sports quota. Okay, so there's a category of students who are who are average in their studies. At that time, I used to get 63, 65% marks, which I was used to be happy with. I used to have friends who used to get 75, 80, and they used to be all the time cribbing. So I getting 65%, I used to be happy. So this I'm talking about 1987. Okay, 1987. So that's a long time ago. Doesn't seem that long ago to me. It just seems like yesterday, but it's 1987. So I went to Hansraj College. So I had like I said, I was always an average student. I used to be always very interested in sports. And then I went to, after finishing my BCom honors from Hansraj College, I went to University of Texas at Dallas. And there I like the system, the way they teach there in US. So I quite enjoyed studying there. I was also the president of my student government in the university. So I was very actively involved. I had nothing else to do. So I really enjoyed that. And that's where I got the inspiration about the national flag also, because there was a period 1990 to 92. And I used to see all the Americans display their national flag. And seeing them, I also wanted to display the American flag. But I was like, wait a second. I said, I'm not American. Why should I display the American flag? I said, I'm Indian. Maybe I should display the Indian flag. And then I asked the people, I said, is it okay if I put up an Indian flag in my office? Because as president of the, student government of university, and, in American university, if I put up an Indian flag, I say, are people going to get upset? They said, no, it's cool. It's no problem. So I put up the flag, and anyway, I don't want to, that's a whole long story. Which then after coming back, it took 10 years, the whole fight in the High Court and the Supreme Court. And then finally, we got the right that today every one of us can display the national flag. Earlier, you could not put up a flag like this in your office. You could not put up a flag in your house. You could not put up a flag in your car. Could not wear a flag on your clothes, on your cap. So now you can. So now we can proudly display our national colors, our flag. And to me, it's only a symbolic gesture to remind us of our duties towards the country. It always reminds us that we are first and last, we are Indians. When we display the flag, we rise above our religious affiliations, our political affiliations, and just show that we are proud Indians, and always reminds us of our duties towards our nation. So we keep encouraging that more and more people should display the national flag. And most importantly, be a good citizen, do your own job well, and together we can make our country great.
Fantastic. In fact, we can rightly so say you're the man responsible in India for, making sure that citizens are able to use national flag. And whenever I have seen you, I've always, seen you wear that flag bracelet. I've seen you wear
right now also.
I think I've seen you before. So I think that's great. Absolutely commendable.
Thank you.
So, Naveen, you grew up in a business family. Even your father was a very, very respected and a revered industrialist and a businessman. So, what was your upbringing like? Were conversations in childhood always about entrepreneurship and business? And did you always know, even when you were really young, that this is what you have to do?
So, as a kid, I was the 10th child that my parents had, okay? So being the 10th child, so I obviously had lots of brothers and sisters, so I always got a lot of love and affection from everyone. But obviously, when you're growing up, your ideas keep changing. I always wanted to join the army. Sometimes you want to become a doctor, sometimes you want to become an engineer. So all those things kept changing. But then obviously, as you grow older, you do realize what you really want to do. And then I was always very passionate about sports, polo, shooting. So that's why army used to appeal to me, because lots of my friends were in army, and they used to pursue the sport of shooting and polo. But then I realized later that, if I do my own business and industries, then definitely, I'll be able to pursue my passion. And then one has to see the where you can make the most contribution. So where you can make the most contribution to the society. So I felt that I could do that by joining politics. Okay. So that's why in 2004, when I was 34 years old, I wanted to give the best years of my life to making the country of my dreams, and I joined electoral politics. Probably it's the first time in the history of the country that a young industrialist joined electoral politics. There's a lot of people who come from Rajya Sabha, but I joined. I contested elections from Kurukshetra, the land of Mahabharat. I joined. I contested from there, and people gave me, they gave me an opportunity twice to represent them. And in the parliament, whatever best I could do, I tried to do it. But I did realize that it's like I was one amongst 545 people, so it's not very easy. It's a very very big classroom. To be able to actually, and parliaments are, I would say, they're captured by the governments. The governments do what they want to do. You just, as member of parliament, you can just go and speak whatever you want to speak to make a difference. Of course, you can make a difference, but it's not very easy. So I just felt that every person has their own calling. So I just feel now that as an industrialist, if you're setting up plants in remote areas, you're creating wealth for the country, you're creating employment, you're able to open hospitals, schools, universities, etc. So we're able to contribute a lot more, and I enjoy doing all this. In a steel plant, you saw that video. So in a steel plant, there's never a dull moment. All the time there's a lot of action, there's noise, action, lights. So there's a lot of action happening. And right now, steel, after a long time, steel is also doing very well right now. There is good demand. So we are just trying to ramp up production so that there is no shortage anywhere and we are able to supply.
Great. So, yeah, you already spoke about your political stint in Kurukshetra.
Sorry, I gave you a very long answer for your short question, but I just, okay, I'll try to be precise next time.
No problem. We want to hear you as much as you would like to speak. Yeah, so you spoke about Kurukshetra. So if you can recall your political days and what do you feel was the biggest impact you would make as a political figure in this country?
So you see, as a political figure, obviously I was part of a large organization, right? I was part of a political party, the Indian National Congress. So I think Indian National Congress during that time, it did a lot of great things. We talk about right to information. It is completely, I think it's historic. It's revolutionary. You talk about right to education. Food security. So food security, 2000, this is sometime 2007-8 that I started this. I brought out a private member's resolution, and I had named it the Zero Hunger. I said that no one should sleep hungry. There should be enough food, because food is the most basic requirement of any human being. So you should be able to at least have enough food. And so, government must ensure that nobody sleeps hungry. And I got inspiration for this from, there was a master, Kuwa Choksui, he's no more now, but he used to teach about pranic healing. He's from, I think he's from Malaysia, Master Kuwa Choksui. So he gave me the inspiration. He said, Naveen, you must work on this in the parliament, bring a Zero Hunger Act. So anyway, so I spoke to our party leadership, and I spoke to Mrs. Gandhi. She was very supportive. They said, don't worry, you withdraw your resolution. we'll bring an act on this. And then this Food Security Act came. And during this last year also, during this migrant workers issues, and so a lot of I've taken up the issue of one Aadhaar card or one ration card. You should be able to get ration anywhere. So for someone who's very poor, the most basic need is food. Because if you're hungry, you'll commit any crime to keep yourself, to keep your family hunger, not to die of hunger. You'll do anything. So one is I worked on this. Then I worked on banning smoking. My father always used to smoke, so I used to hate smoking from childhood. So when I reached the Parliament 2004, I realized that in the Central Hall, everyone was allowed to smoke. And I used to get a headache. So I was like, how can they have smoking in the Parliament? So then I took up this Mr. Somnath Chatterjee was the speaker that time, Speaker of Lok Sabha. So I took it up with him. He said, young man, if you want to do this, you write to me. So I checked up the relevant act, everything, and I wrote to him. I said that in public places you can't be smoking. And I said, this is a public place. Everyone is sitting here. How can you be smoking here? So within 2 weeks, smoking got banned. Smoking got banned from the Parliament. So these are small things. But I just want to say that in my life, whatever I felt was wrong, something needed to be done about it. I did not just talk about it. I did not just think about it. I did not just complain about it. I took up that issue in a systematic way to resolve it. Like the national flag, I realized that we're not allowed to display the national flag. I said, how is it possible? Then in our country, I could display the flag in the US. Nobody stopped me. In my own country, I cannot respectfully display the Indian flag. So then I took it up. It took 10 long years. But then today, everybody can. You see this, we put up these large monumental flagpoles all over the country. And I'm happy to tell you that today, India has more monumental flags than any other country in the world. So things like that, at the duty-free shops, I saw that, if any one of you remember earlier, 10 years back, they did not used to accept Indian rupee. They only wanted dollars and pounds and euros. So I was like, what is this? How can you go to Singapore and they say, oh, no, we will not accept Singapore dollar. Or how can you go to Thailand? They say, no, we don't accept Thai baht. But in India, they say we do not accept Indian rupee at the duty-free shops at Indian airports. So took it up, spoke about it in the Parliament many times, and then finally that got changed. Today we can use Indian rupee. So these are small things. And then the national flag, we weren't allowed to wear it on our t-shirts. We weren't allowed to wear it on our cap. Sachin Tendulkar was wearing it and he was, asked to remove it. So I took it up in the Parliament and this act was amended. The Prevention to Insults to National Honor Act 1971 was amended unanimously, which allowed every Indian to display the national flag by wearing it on t-shirts and caps and jackets, basically above the waist. So these are small things that I tried. And in my constituency, of course, in Kurukshetra, I ensured every household has a toilet. There's no open defecation. We made gyms in every village. So we did a lot of work over there. And then, so it's not very easy. It's not something that, you can do like miracles, but every committee, whichever ones I represented, I tried to do a good job. I tried to do whatever I can, whatever I could at that time. So it was a great experience.
Great. And I think it's fantastic how you've exercised power so responsibly, because if you have that kind of, a leverage to be able to represent public, I feel that, these small things can often bring ginormous impact in the nation as a whole. Naveen, a while back you said that you were an average student. I disagree, because I think sports is something that's so fundamentally important, and I feel everybody who's hearing this today should learn from you one thing, that despite of not getting academically high marks, you've still done so much of great body of work in your life. So coming back to sports, shooting or polo, choose which one do you enjoy more?
So I enjoy polo more. But there was a time that I used to have issues with my back. So I started to focus more on shooting. But shooting just takes up a lot of time. shooting, you just when you and I then I'm very happy that I could create a national record in 2003, December 2003 in Hyderabad national championship. I created a national record, which still holds because after that the rules changed. So when the rules change, your record is there forever. So shooting is it needs a lot of discipline, and it needs a lot of time, effort, and the whole day. And you have when you do poorly, you have no one to blame because nobody's stopping you, nobody's disturbing you. You're just by yourself. And so I used to do clay shooting, clay pigeon shooting, which there's a clay pigeon which is thrown in the air, and then you shoot it with a shotgun. So, but polo is a lot of fun. I love horses, riding, speed, and this teamwork. There are umpires, there are other teams' grounds. So there's always someone to blame. If something goes wrong. But I'm just joking. So it's a team sport. So I really like polo. It's a lot of physical activity. My son also plays, so we play together. So it's fun. Sometimes he's passing to me. Sometimes I'm passing to him. So it's nice. It just keeps you going.
Fantastic. So now I'm going to circle back on the presentation that you gave initially, and you spoke about electrification of India. So many years after independence, we as Indian citizens feel that why have we still not attained 100% electrification? You said that the power has not been issue, but some other factors. And, if you'd like to draw some light on, why did it not happen? Because it breaks our heart to see that, still electricity is something as basic as electricity and toilets is things that we're talking about now. Why has it not reached everywhere?
Okay, so obviously in India, see, firstly, there are so many people. I mean, almost more than half the people are living below poverty line, right? So if you don't have money, then you don't have access to water, you don't have access to electricity or toilets. So we have to create more prosperity, right? So then we have such a huge population. Another subject that's close to my heart is that we must achieve population stabilization. Again, I took up this issue in the parliament, and then when I took up this issue, it was almost after a period of 33 years at that time that this issue was discussed in the parliament. And when I took up this issue that we wanted a discussion on population stabilization in the parliament, some people from my party said, no, don't break up this issue. Congress had to pay dearly for this issue, in the 70s. But I said, no, we'll take it up. So we were a little bit apprehensive that maybe other political parties, they'll ridicule Congress about this, about the emergency period, etc. But to our surprise, everybody spoke in its favor. Everybody all across political spectrum, they spoke in its favor. So there are, there are issues that we need to do, which are but slowly I think things are happening now as prosperity is improving. People's education is improving. They say prosperity is the best contraceptive. So now things are, but still states that are poor, there are a lot of poor population. Still there is lack of education, lack of prosperity, lack of electricity. So electricity, firstly, so as people's level will improve, I think more. So there is no shortage of electricity, and now even renewable, solar, wind, hydro. Government is laying a lot of focus on that. So electricity is a challenging issue, but government is taking the right decisions, right steps towards it. And as a result, even the consumption is going to increase. Today, our per capita consumption is only 3 units per person per day. And say in America or Europe, it would be not 3, it would be 20 times of that. It would be something like 60, 70 units per person per day. We consume only 1100 units per year, whereas in Western countries they consume 15,000 to 20,000 units. So improving the quality of life, if you want people to improve the quality of life, you're right, they must have access to electricity. So now it's happening, but a lot more needs to be done.
Great. And we're amidst a pandemic now. Your industry certainly has taken a hit just like any other. You've spoken about the continued endeavors that you've been making, but what do you want to talk about a generalized outlook for the industry at a time when the demand has been muted, but as you rightly so said, that exports is something that have been a savior and they have been growing, especially for your country. But when do you think that the economy is going to revive, as per your personal opinion? And what's the future outlook for steel industry? Is the future more promising than it currently is?
See, I'm an optimist. So we definitely feel, like I said about electricity. So electricity, like I said, we are 1/4 of the consumption in China in electricity. Okay, we are again 1/3 the global average, and compared to the Western world, we are not even 1/10. Similarly, in steel also, our per capita consumption is only 75 kg. Okay, world average is more than 200. China, it is more than 400. So again, when there is prosperity in people, we need to build our infrastructure. So steel consumption is going to increase. So that's why we feel there's a good potential for steel. But this pandemic, of course, it is very, very unfortunate. And, we have such a large, people, so many like, more than 50,000 people are directly working in the company. So, people, their relatives. So we keep on getting news, and, a lot of times unpleasant news of people dying. So a lot of people are now dying because this time, last time around, we thought it was very bad, September. But this time, what is happening, I think, is much worse. And suddenly the whole system, oxygen, we never used to hear that there was any shortage of oxygen. Okay, but now suddenly everywhere, because a lot of people are needing oxygen to survive. And so the whole system has not been able to cope up with that. I'm sure in the next, now everybody is very, very sincerely working towards it. So I'm sure in the next 3-4 days, things will improve drastically. But this pandemic, I hope in the next couple of months, because we need to increase the vaccination drive, we need to speed it up. And I'm sure things will, again, I'm an optimist, but we have, paid very, very dearly due to this pandemic. And so many people have lost their loved ones. And so all my sympathies with them. And I think we need to take all the care that we can, have physical distancing, be smart about it, take care of the hygiene. And that's the only way, I think, to prevent this. There's no magical solution or anything, but we all have to be very, very responsible towards ourselves and towards the people who we work with.
Okay. So, Naveen, you manage a mega empire. What does your typical day look like, and what are the day-to-day challenges that you go through? It could be, with respect to the legalities or, government involvement in your sector, or what are the pressures like, and how do you deal with that?
So I may have sounded that everything is good and everything is fine, and I'm smiling away, and So, but obviously, I have lots of challenges. I have 2 cases against me by CBI. Okay, 2 criminal cases against me from CBI, then ED, Enforcement Directorate. So it's just, to me, these cases are absolutely frivolous. But that is how it is, for creating wealth for the country, for creating jobs, for doing a good thing, paying huge thousands, crores of taxes, etc., etc. But something, and they want to catch the head. They want to catch, because they want to be happy. Even though in these cases, I have no role in them. At that time, I was a member of parliament, hardly paying any attention to business. There is no signature, there's no instruction, nothing. But still, they put my name in it because they feel, anyway, I shouldn't say it's too much, but I have confidence in India's judiciary. I'm sure ultimately truth will prevail. So lots of challenges. Like I said, last 6 years, every month, multiple miracles saved us. But multiple miracles also mean that you're very close to, tipping over. You're very close to like going bankrupt. So they're very, very challenging times. And then the environment in the country has become that no banker, nobody wants to seem to be helping someone, especially an industrialist, nobody wants to touch. Naveen Jindal, not at all. Naveen Jindal, used to be Congress MP, government has changed. So I just feel that these are very, very small things, whether we are Indians or we are Americans or Pakistani or Hindu, Muslim or which political party. We are all human beings. We all have to work together. We have to have compassion for each other. We have to be helpful towards each other together. If we have to grow as a country, we have to work and support each other. That's the only way we can grow. We have to have a conducive environment in which our youngsters, they feel proud to be Indians. They feel that they want to do something for the country, and everybody does their own job well. So all these challenges are there, and so when we had so much of loan and we had to repay, so no bank would come forward. I give you an example that earlier I never used to meet any banker. I didn't know any banker. Our people they used to seek time from me that, this chairman is coming to Delhi, they want to call on you. And then the chairman or the MD would come say, Mr. Jindal, we want to work with you. We want to do some business with you. I was like, okay. And then when you need them, you don't find them. When you need them. So they say about bankers, that bankers are people who offer you an umbrella when the sun is shining and ask for it back as soon as it starts to rain. So that's what, but you can't blame them also. That is the business they are in. They are in business of lending. So they are extra super conservative now. So lots of challenges, but then I feel that my challenges are minuscule to so many other people. So I all the time focus on counting my blessings. I always feel that I'm very, very blessed. Whatever challenges I have, these challenges have only made me stronger. So I weigh the same what I used to weigh 30 years back when I was even 20 years old. I am fitter now than I was 20 years old. I can run more. I play as good polo when I used to do. I haven't tried my hand at shooting for a long time. So lots of challenges, but you have to keep yourself motivated. You have to see what is the good that's happening. And then also draw inspiration from other people's challenges. There's so many movies that you see, so many serials that you see that how much people struggle. In your daily life, how much people struggle and they are still happy. So you have to draw inspiration from them, keep yourself inspired. Whatever time you have, whatever good one can do to others, try to do good. So I think all these simple things, keep me going and can keep anyone going.
Yeah, and I feel our conversation can also keep going. However, I think one student is very eager to ask you a question. So I'll just quickly take that. Shruti, Radhika. Yeah, Shruti wants to ask you a question.
So what is that one mantra you've always followed as an entrepreneur?
Well, the one mantra that I'm following now is the principles of the one thing. So always asking yourself, what's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else would be easier or unnecessary. So if you're actually interested in this, then you read this book called The One Thing. I think you'll enjoy it. And if you actually follow the principles in it, you will be hugely successful.
Great. Thank you, Naveen. And just a final question from my side for you is that, so what are your comments on the startup ecosystem? Nowadays, a lot of new budding entrepreneurs are coming up, internet entrepreneurs, and the ecosystem is thriving. So do you also invest or are looking into investing into the future? If no, then what's your message for future entrepreneurs who want to?
Okay. So these startup entrepreneurs nowadays, they are very, very smart. They are much smarter than I am or even my generation is. So that they have a huge future. They have a very, very bright future in front of them. And so if they just work systematically and sincerely, so things will happen. So I have 2 young kids. So, I understand. So kids are very smart nowadays. And they have a whole lot of opportunities. And now this pandemic, this shown us, maybe if there was no pandemic, we would not be having this virtual session. And now everything is, like I'm going to do this meeting, then 12:30 meeting with the Prime Minister, then 2 o'clock is another conference. So we have to use technology. Whatever the situation is amidst the challenges, we have to see what the opportunities are. What kind of services that we can provide, what kind of product that we can provide, what kind of app we can provide to people that will take care of their difficulties, right? So there are so many things, and so the kids nowadays, all of you know these things really well. So I wish you all the very, very best. I mean, Xavier's is a great institute, and you have, people, you produced lots and lots of leaders for the country and for the world. And I'm sure all of you are going to turn out great leaders. You're going to do great things, and all my good wishes are with you. And anytime, anywhere, if you see me on the airport, you see anywhere, you're most welcome to come up to me, stop me, say hi to me, speak to me. I would love that.
Fantastic. Thank you. I would like to personally thank you so much, Naveen, for being so candid with all your answers, sharing your life story, being so humble, and telling us about your how you follow spirituality, to sharing your business acumen. I think this indeed has been a roller coaster of a conversation for me, and honored to share the same stage with you. Besides sharing the same city with you, I also hail from Haryana, Hisar. So
Oh, really?
it's been an absolute pleasure, Naveen.
Wow, that's
Thank you
great.
so much.
Okay, thank you. Take care, all of you.